Amanda. I'm a dietitian here at Three Rivers Health, and today we'll talk about anti-inflammatory eating. Looks like it's a popular topic. So objectives, we'll review inflammation. We'll talk about chronic inflammation and how it impacts health. We will talk about some risk factors for inflammation. We will discuss an anti-inflammatory eating pattern versus a more inflammatory eating pattern, and we'll even go through some meal examples. Before I dig into an anti-inflammatory eating pattern, it's important to have an understanding of inflammation. So inflammation is the body's defense mechanism. It's the process by which the body fights off harmful invaders like germs, wounds, allergens, and toxins. Acute or short-term inflammation is beneficial. Redness, swelling, pain around the tissues or joints can occur in response to injuring yourself, like getting a scrape. So the body responds by then releasing white blood cells to help with healing and protecting the body. Chronic inflammation, however, can lead to damage. And there's not always clear signs of chronic inflammation. You can see a lot of the signs and symptoms that are listed there, they overlap with a lot of different conditions and things. So you can see here with this little chart some of the things that may cause acute inflammation: allergies, chemical irritants, infection, trauma or injury, burns, wounds, frostbite. So those all cause acute inflammation. So if there's that constant inflammation, that's what's going to lead to chronic inflammation, which is associated with a lot of chronic diseases. As you can see, inflammation increases risk for diabetes, heart disease, stroke, COPD, allergies, arthritis. The list is a lot longer, but these are just some of those. Some risk factors for chronic inflammation: age plays a role, obesity, diet, smoking, poor sleep, lack of physical activity, stress disorders, environmental toxins, and alcohol intake. And as you can see, a lot of these are diet and lifestyle ones, so they are modifiable through making changes. They aren't just inherently going to cause inflammation. So that can be empowering. And we'll talk about some of those tools to help decrease the risks. But before digging in, I want to go over a couple of the risk factors that may not seem to be diet related, but they do play a role in managing overall health and inflammation. And they may even impact ability to manage nutrition as well. So the first one I want to talk about is stress. In this fast-paced world we live in nowadays, stress has become a frequent and normal thing, to the point that we don't even realize it's a problem. So meaning we become used to being in a high-stress state. And this is called chronic stress. And just like inflammation, stress is good in the short term, but in the long term, that chronic stress does have a lot of negative impacts on health. When we experience mental, physical stress or danger, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and this is also known as the fight or flight response. This puts your body in high alert. So in response to this, the hormone cortisol is released, and blood pressure is going to increase, heart rate's going to increase, blood sugar is going to increase, and that happens in order to help us get through those stressful situations. On the other hand, rest or digest is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this kicks in when the body's at rest and feels safe. And during this time, the body conserves energy, heart rate's gonna slow, and digestion and metabolism are going to kick in. And we need a balance of the two. We don't always wanna be in one or the other. We want a balance of those two. How does chronic stress relate to our eating? It can affect eating in many ways. It can cause poor digestion or GI issues, because if you are in that fight or flight state, the body's taking away from digestion. It's putting its energy elsewhere in order to get through that. So that can cause stomach pains. Emotional eating is very common in dealing with tough situations, or it can have the opposite effect and decrease appetite. Some people don't want to eat at all. And also the lack of motivation to stay on track. If you are dealing with a lot of stressful situations, sometimes diet gets put to the back. Sleep also plays a big role. It's regulated by circadian rhythm, which helps to manage our hormones. And part of those hormones is going to be the ones that affect our appetite. The circadian rhythm also helps with regulating the immune system. When you're sleeping, that helps the body heal and revive, so it does play a very important role in overall inflammation. It can be triggered by too much sleep or too little sleep. In general, it's recommended to try to go to sleep around the same time and wake up at the same time, and aim for about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Stress also plays a role in the stress-inflammation relationship. It can make it harder to go to sleep if you're dealing with a lot of stress, and on the other side, a lack of sleep can increase the effect of stress and irritability. Alcohol intake. So alcohol causes inflammation to the GI tract, and it weakens the body's ability to regulate inflammation. In the long term, it can impair organ function, especially the liver and brain. And it disrupts the balance of good to bad bacteria. The majority of the immune system is actually located in the gut. So when that balance of the good to bad bacteria is out of whack, the body is not going to be able to deal with that inflammation as well. And it also weakens the stomach barrier. So it makes it easier for bacteria or other toxins to pass through to our bloodstream. So it makes it easier for you to get sick. So management of inflammation is going to be through diet and lifestyle changes. It could include exercise, managing stress, getting good sleep, focusing on getting balanced meals, and limiting alcohol intake. So now we'll dig into more of the eating side of things. Some inflammatory type foods are going to include refined carbohydrates. So that's going to be white flour type products, white bread, instant mashed potatoes, crackers, chips, and a lot of breakfast cereals. Added sugar, we probably all heard about the negatives of added sugar. Most of us can benefit from decreasing the amount. It does increase risk for a lot of chronic diseases as well as inflammation. Some common sources of added sugar tend to be sugary drinks, whether that's juice, soda, sweetened coffee drinks, sweet tea, but also sweet treats, whether that's desserts, pastries, candy, and even some dairy products like yogurt can add up pretty quickly in added sugars. Fried foods, which restaurants and fast food tend to be a big source of fried foods, and that could include French fries, it could include fried chicken, fried appetizers, chicken wings. Those are common food sources. Processed meats like bacon, sausage, hot dog, brats, deli meats. There's lots of negatives for our health in regards to processed meats as well, so they can help with decreasing inflammation, especially the nitrates. Nitrates tend to play a role in this inflammation. Saturated and trans fats. Saturated fats typically come from animal-based sources, as well as butter, whole dairy products, cheese, and then plant-based sources of saturated fat are going to be palm oil and coconut oil. And it's especially those common food sources listed that we're really concerned with in regards to inflammation. The snack foods, cheeseburgers, pizza, ice cream, biscuits, processed meats, those are going to have a big impact. And something to look for in the ingredient list of foods is partially hydrogenated oil. If it's listed on there, it's going to have some sort of trans fats in there, and it's a good red flag to try to avoid that item. Ultra-processed foods, that's going to include like boxed meal mixes, mac and cheese, rice-a-roni, helper, for example, frozen meals, that could be chicken nuggets, pizza rolls, tater tots, hot pockets, chips, crackers, a lot of the snacky type foods, sweetened breakfast cereals, packaged soups like SpaghettiOs, Chef Boyardee, ramen noodles. And so when I mention these, it's not that you can never have them. It's all about the context and trying to find balance. What does your eating pattern look like most of the time? How often are you having these items? How many times a day? Really, what's that quantity? Because I'm not going to stand here and say never have these items, because having that mindset of I can never have this, I should never have it, it really makes you feel a sense of deprivation, and then it makes it hard to be able to limit those foods in the long run. I do want to touch a little bit more on the ultra-processed foods. It's not that anything in a box, a bag, a package is going to fit this. It's mainly those foods that are industrially formulated, they're made in big factories, and they typically have lots of ingredients that you would not have in your home kitchen. At least 5 or more, not that it has to be that specific criteria, but some of those additives are going to be preservatives, colors, texturizing agents, smell and taste enhancers. And these foods tend to lack nutrients. They don't naturally have fiber. They don't have the vitamins and minerals or protein without having to add it into them. So some of those examples, like the hamburger helpers, SpaghettiOs, ramen noodles. It's kind of shocking when you look at the ingredient list of some of these foods. It's really hard to guess what they are. Does anybody have any guesses to what food number 1 is? Can't read it? Oh, it's too small?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the things on there, there's enriched flour, which includes wheat flour, niacin, there's sulfate, thiamine, there's tomato puree, which has water, tomato paste, there's water, pepperoni, seasoned pork, chicken, meat. I mean, there's just endless ingredients. Pizza? Pizza, close, pizza rolls. But the thing is, it could be so many of those. It could have been, probably Hot Pockets are comparable to this one. And then for food number 2, any guesses on this one? It has enriched flour bleached. It has also wheat flour, malted barley flour, corn syrup. Cereal?
Corn syrup would be one of the, I think you want to stay away from.
Yeah, it's an added sugar, so yes. This one is a toaster strudel. And another thing that shocks me in looking at that food 1 is that at one point it mentions, let me see if I can find it here. It says imitation mozzarella cheese, and then it lists water, palm oil, modified cornstarch, vegetable oil, and so on. And then lower down it says rehydrated fat-free mozzarella cheese. And it's like, okay, is that really necessary? Why is there 2 different kinds of mozzarella cheese in there? But there's a lot of things on there I would never keep in my home kitchen. So it's a good sign that these are things that you want to try to limit more often. So it does help to look at these food labels. Again, not to fear them, you don't have to completely eliminate them, but how many of your foods throughout the day and throughout the week look like this on the food label? Was anybody shocked by those foods or the ingredient list? Okay, so eating to fight inflammation. Here it's important to focus on nutrient-dense foods. These are going to be foods that contain fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and they've typically been through minimal processing. Notice that most of the inflammatory type foods, they're man-made, or they went through tons of processing to get to their end point. When it comes to anti-inflammatory type foods, those are more likely going to be whole foods that went through a lot less processing, and they're closer to how they would be in nature. So that's going to be things like fruits and veggies, whole grains, fiber, healthy fats. Also herbs and spices and antioxidants as well.
Are there some spices that are worse than others? Obviously there must be. But
They all have an important role, so it just really depends. Yes. Fruits and veggies, I can't emphasize enough the benefits here. They're packed with fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, And these are all important in fighting inflammation in the body. In general, I recommend try to aim for at least 2 cups of fruit a day or 2 fruit a day, and at least 3 or more cups of vegetables. It does help to eat the rainbow, get lots of variety of color, because all of those different colors in the fruits and veggies are gonna provide different nutrients. And some cost-effective ways to help include more, buying them in season. We're now slowly starting to get into summer again when it's easier to find things in season. Also frozen though, those can be a great option. But if you are buying frozen, getting those without the added sauces or seasonings, and then flavoring them yourself. Or try growing some of your favorites. If you don't have to have a huge, massive garden, it could even look like having a couple pots on your back deck. So you can start that way too. Fiber is a non-digestible carbohydrate. There's so many benefits to fiber. Helps bring the bad cholesterol levels down. It helps keep you full and satisfied longer. Helps with managing blood sugar. And it helps with keeping you regular in the bathroom. And fiber has been shown to help decrease markers for inflammation. One of those is known as CRP. Beans and legumes are a low-cost, high-fiber option, which are also packed full of nutrients. Some other high-fiber sources are going to be whole grains, fruits, veggies, nuts, and seeds. Healthy fats, especially the monounsaturated fats, have been shown to help reduce levels of inflammation and pain in the body. Healthy fats are going to come from sources like olive oil, avocados, fatty fish, nuts, and seeds. And especially the omega-3s in fish have been shown to have a big impact on decreasing inflammation. I've seen a lot of this too in regards to rheumatoid arthritis specifically. And when it comes to choosing an oil, I recommend choosing a cold pressed option, like with olive oil, doing like an extra virgin olive oil. It's gonna go through the least amount of processing to get to that point. One thing I almost included in here was a video of how vegetable oils are made, which if you don't know, try looking it up. It's pretty wild, the process they go through to get to those vegetable oils, like sunflower, canola, those type of oils. Antioxidants, these are molecules in food that help remove free radicals from the body. Free radicals can lead to oxidation and cell damage, which is a big risk factor for many diseases. And high intake of antioxidants can help fight that oxidative stress. So you can find antioxidants in a lot of rich pigmented foods like dark chocolate, dark leafy greens, broccoli, cranberries, berries in general, red cabbage. So really going for a lot of those colors again. So now we'll talk about a couple different eating patterns that align with a more anti-inflammatory type eating. My Plate is one option here. It's an easy way to develop some well-balanced meals that can help reduce inflammation in the body. So it really focuses on aiming half your plate fruits and veggies, especially those vegetables, and then limiting whatever carb or whole grain to about a quarter of your plate, and then that other quarter plate for healthy lean proteins, and then trying to make water that beverage of choice. This is another guide for an anti-inflammatory type eating pattern. Fruits and veggies, aiming for at least 5 or more cups a day. Fiber, trying to get 25 to 30 grams in a day. Nuts and seeds, 1 handful or around 1.5 ounces daily. Beans, trying to get a cup in twice a week. For fatty fish, which that's like salmon, mackerel, herring, lake trout, sardines, trying to get a 3 to 4 ounce serving twice a week. Reducing intake of saturated fats, trans fats, added sugars, and processed carbohydrates. And then cooking with herbs and spices like turmeric regularly, and using oils like extra virgin olive oil or an avocado oil. And the avocado oil is a good high heat cooking oil. Olive oil, it's not as good at cooking at high heat, so just a fun fact there too. And then teas, like green tea, has been shown to have some good anti-inflammatory properties as well. The Mediterranean diet emphasizes an eating pattern comparable to the last two that we went through, and it focuses on limiting overall meats, especially red meats, limiting sweets, alcohol, and dairy. And while the Mediterranean diet is high in overall fat, about 50% of that fat comes from the monounsaturated that I mentioned earlier. And it does have a high intake of the whole plant foods, which are gonna add lots of fiber, vitamins, minerals, and other phytochemicals to help with inflammation. So this is a Mediterranean diet pyramid, different from the previous diet pyramid we used to have, just geared more towards the Mediterranean eating. So you can see the bottom there really focuses on physical activity, enjoying meals with others, and then that biggest portion is going to be full of all those plant-based foods. And at the top, those are the ones that should be limited most often, like the meats and sweets, dairy, poultry, alcohol. DASH diet stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. This is a popular diet that was developed to help with lowering high blood pressure. The main focus is on lowering sodium intake. It emphasizes less processed foods. It looks at getting more whole foods like the fruits and veggies, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and lean proteins. And so you can see all of these have a lot of similarities with them, but a little bit of differences in there. So after going through those, if you're still curious, okay, where should I start? You can't go wrong typically with increasing fruits and veggies. Experiment. Try them cooked different ways. Steamed broccoli is going to taste a lot different from cooking broccoli in the oven versus grilling versus sauteing. So if you find you hate steamed broccoli, maybe try it a different way. That's going to stand for other vegetables as well. It's going to bring out different flavor profiles as well as different textures depending on how it is cooked. Choose whole grains. That's going to be like brown rice, whole wheat type products like whole wheat bread or whole wheat pasta, oatmeal. Those are some common whole grains. And eat less meat. Decrease meat portion to about 3 to 4 ounces a meal. This is comparable to about the size of a deck of cards, or women about the size of our palm. And if you have trouble with certain foods, if there's tempting things that you have a hard time controlling yourself on, try keeping those out of sight, out of mind. Sometimes keeping those out of the house helps. However, allow yourself a treat once in a while. Don't over-restrict yourself. The more we tell ourselves, I shouldn't have that, I can't have that, the more you're likely to end up craving it. So allow yourself some balance. Take that guilt away. And start slowly. Pick one thing to focus on. Make it a goal that feels achievable. It shouldn't feel like a goal that feels really difficult to reach. Maybe it's just taking 30 minutes a week to plan dinner meals, or decreasing eating out to twice a week, or increasing vegetable intake to a cup a day, slowly building on those goals. Okay, we'll talk about some meal ideas. So for breakfast, here are a couple ideas. You could do like a plain oatmeal. You could add some blueberries, peanut butter in there, and an extra crunch. For an extra crunch and boost, you could even try things like chia seed, hemp seed, or flax seed. Those are ways to add a little bit more fiber and nutrients in there as well. You could do a plain Greek yogurt with nuts and fruit. Even try throwing in maybe some coconut flakes or some dark chocolate pieces. A veggie scramble with turmeric. The turmeric adds in a little extra color, makes the eggs a little bit more yellow, and experiment with different vegetables. Try broccoli, tomatoes, spinach, onions, mushrooms, or whatever ones that you like. You could have hard-boiled eggs. Eat these alone or slice them with toast, or have some sliced fruits or veggies with them. You could do whole wheat toast with some hummus or avocado or peanut butter, and try topping it with different things. You could add some tomato, cucumber, or eggs. And if you haven't had everything but the bagel seasoning, that's a nice topping for avocado toast, for example. lunch ideas, a baked chicken breast with hummus on whole wheat bread with a side of steamed broccoli. And this is something you can do in advance. You could cook up some chicken breast to have for sandwiches for the week to decrease intake of lunch meats. Salad, you could have cucumber, tomato, onions, and top it with tuna. That's a really quick, easy meal right there. A whole wheat wrap with beans, chopped veggies, guacamole, and salsa. Or cook extras at dinner. If you don't want to have to come up with a whole separate lunch meal, double your dinner recipe so that you have leftovers then for a couple days. Dinner ideas, roasted salmon with sauteed kale, red onion, and a side of brown rice. A baked chicken breast with steamed green beans and rosemary roasted potatoes. Is this making anyone hungry yet? Half a plate of whole wheat spaghetti with a side salad. So you can still enjoy the spaghetti, but you're getting the balance with the side salad. Salmon patty with a salad and roasted acorn squash. Salmon patties are super quick and easy too if you just use something like a canned salmon. Or you could do it with tuna even. Okay, so I want to go into some common myths, which that first one there, all inflammation is bad. I kind of already debunked that one at the beginning. It is important. Our body does need inflammation to heal and get through wounds and infections and things, so we do need some inflammation. It's the chronic inflammation that we're concerned with. Everyone should eliminate gluten and dairy. So this seems to be more common lately, but if somebody is recommending that you need to or everybody needs to eliminate these things, you probably should be running the other way because it really varies person to person. In general, these are not foods that you have to completely cut out. Gluten-containing foods and dairy foods, they do have important nutrients in there that some people tolerate just fine. So that is something that we would really have to look at an individual basis. All sweet foods cause inflammation. It's the added sugar more so that we're concerned with here. There are some foods that have natural sugars, like fruit, that are going to actually have the opposite effect. Fruit have lots of nutrients in them, vitamins, minerals, a lot of those antioxidants that fight inflammation in the body. So not all sweet foods necessarily cause inflammation. Nightshades are inflammatory. This is another one I sometimes hear, and that is in regards to eggplant, tomatoes, potatoes, and peppers. Most people do typically fine with these, and cutting those out is going to be cutting out a lot of important nutrients. So that's another thing that we would really have to look at an individualized basis. One diet that works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for the next person. If you're curious if any of these things are playing a role though, use your body as an experiment. Trial eliminating it if you're wondering and see if you notice a difference. If you're not really noticing anything different, there's no need to completely take those out of your diet. And last but not least for the common myths, fat is bad. This was huge in the 1980s. I think that was the low fat craze. Everyone said avoid fat, go low fat. What was actually found during that time is that carbohydrates and sugar increased in place of the fat, and health risks did not necessarily decrease. Outcomes for heart disease were just as bad as they were with that fat in there. It's more so the type of fat that we should be concerned with, decreasing more so the saturated or trans fats and increasing more of those saturated fats. Okay, some key takeaways here. It's important to find ways to take time for yourself and manage stress. It's impossible to completely eliminate stress. That's not realistic, but it is important that you find a way to come down from that chronic stress. Make sleep a priority. Aim for the 7 to 9 hours a night. Limit alcohol intake. Limit intake of the refined carbohydrates, sugars, and processed foods. Go for fruits and veggies and focus more so on variety. Choose whole grains and high fiber foods. And another thing to consider is think more so about what can you add to your diet rather than what needs to be eliminated. If you're focusing on adding more of those nutritious whole foods, it's gonna naturally decrease the amount you're eating of some more of those processed or more inflammatory type foods.